All right, we are here with Alex the Great, Alex Moore. Alex, how are you?
Rob, I'm doing great. I was your winner pick and I thought I was going to make it further and we were at this point where if I made it past this vote, I felt really good. But ultimately Rizzo just had the Rizzo. And
You got
so
on the wrong tribe. I think if you go on the other tribe with Rizzo and Savannah and those guys, I think that maybe you're in the spot that Soph is in. But you know what? I want to do something a little bit different here today.
okay.
I'd love to go back through this episode last night from your perspective, and I want to get your take on things because I feel like that we didn't quite see where you were coming from on a lot of
Right.
these things. And so I'd love to start with, okay, after the split tribal council,
Yes.
Sophie, yellow Sophie comes back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
And
Yeah.
could you describe from your perspective, what do you think was going to happen? And how did that all play out?
Yeah, so we're half asleep, and it's pitch black. So we wake up and don't even see what's going on, and we're kind of just like, "Well, who's even here?" And then we're kind of just like, "Oh my God, it's MC who's gone." And so that was our genuine reaction. We thought there is no way Rizzo comes back, and if some chance Rizzo comes back, Sophie Segretti's for sure gone, and that's because why would they not use this opportunity to get Rizzo out? We had the seven-person alliance coming from the second tribe swap. It's everyone who voted out Nate. And that was like a solid group where we knew we had the numbers. And so we were just so sure Rizzo or his idol would be gone. And then when it was Sophie Segretti, we saw her as a competitor. She was making it to the end of every challenge, and she just didn't have the relationships with people. She kind of was off-putting with a lot of her mat chat comments, and people were kind of getting frustrated with her. And so we thought, oh, well, if they're going to get someone out of our group, it's going to be Sophie Segretti. And so then when she came back, we're just absolutely shocked. And that was the first time in the whole entire game I felt like I lost control of what was going on.
And how much of a download did you and the people in your alliance get from how things went on the other side of that split tribal council?
We only heard so much, and I think that honestly was the hardest part for me because we're merged at this point. Like we should be able to see everything for ourselves of what's going on, and so that part was hard. We only can hear what they're telling us, and it's like, are they even telling us the truth? And so yes, they said like, oh, MC kind of went crazy, but it's like she kind of didn't. Like I don't know. That MC told Jawan some information, and he chose to go back on someone who like he should have trusted. And so we weren't getting the full picture, and that was hard.
Okay. So the next thing we see in the episode is we see you talking with Rizzo and Savannah, and you're talking
Yeah.
about Sophie S. And then this conversation ends up getting a little bit embellished into that you are really playing the middle very
Yeah.
hard. Can you talk about, from your perspective, that was this misconstrued, or were you really trying to play the middle real hard?
So my playing the middle was being friendly with everyone. And so I think that's what ultimately Rizzo was intimidated by. Like I wasn't being messy. I literally would just have personal relationships with Rizzo, and then I'd go talk to Kristina, and people are like, Alex is going to talk to everybody. But in this conversation, this was one where Rizzo and Savannah were like, we need to talk. And I'm like, okay, like I know these are the two people I want out, like whatever, they're coming to confront me about something. And so I was ultimately just like, yeah, like Sophie Segretti is good at challenges, like blah, blah, blah. And they took it and ran with it. Like, of course, like I would do the same thing. They're there to make it to the end. And so Rizzo felt his back was against the wall and had to use anything because the thing that I don't get is people just kind of wanted in with them. They just wanted to be liked by Savannah and Rizzo. And I'm like, these are the two people clearly strategizing, like, we have to get them out. And I think that was my downfall, was that, sorry, I just wasn't going to give in to them. And other people felt differently. I don't know.
Okay, so they take that information to Jawan and they say, okay,
Mhm.
oh wow, Alex, he's being so messy. Look at him.
Yeah.
He's really playing the middle hard. But could you speak to your relationship with Jawan and Sage? Because I don't think that we really saw in the show too much of your interactions with them when you were on tribes
Yeah.
with them.
So Jawan and Sage were a part of this seven-person alliance that we had. Was I close with them personally? Like, they're not necessarily my people, let's be real. But the Blackheads in a Jar was a really funny thing to hear as a first introduction. Um, but I knew that we had a good working relationship because we were all in the middle. And so on the Nate vote, I was way more involved in the Nate vote that was actually shown. Nate was actually coming for me, and was throwing around my name because Soph had told him about my idol play. And he's like, well, this guy's a player. And so we kind of made that decision together to go on Nate, at that point. And so we had built up that trust on that vote. And so I thought we would just continue playing that middle ground together, even though the three of us weren't super close. But they just were more willing to go along with Rizzo and Savannah than I was.
And did you have any idea that Steven had leaked to Sage about Kristina's idol that you all had found together?
So I had no idea. And so that was upsetting to see because it's like I did like Steven more and thought we bonded over the chicken. And
Yeah.
I didn't
You
know
were
how
you
close.
were in cahoots on a murder.
I know, arrest us. But I thought that we could work together, the three of us, and he ultimately
You,
decided
Kristina, and Steven.
me, Kristina, and Steven, and we see him in this episode go along with Sage, and I'm kind of just like, like I don't know if that's going to be what's best for you, but he had to do what he had to do.
Yeah.
I ultimately was having to make the decision: do I tell Soph? Do I try and get on in with that side? And I was like, I would just be at the bottom over there, and so
Yeah.
let me try and at least keep this idol a secret, and maybe Kristina can play it on me.
Okay. So let's talk about so Kristina ends up giving up her spot in the reward to
Yeah.
Jawan, and then you end up going on the reward with Jawan. Was that, from your perspective, just completely a gesture of goodwill? We got to feed Jawan, or was any part of that, hey, let's make sure that Jawan is still with us?
I think it was not at all strategic. I think Kristina was very much just trying to look after Jawan, maybe warm him up a little because he was sketched out and sketchy, I should say, with the MC vote. So maybe it was like, all right, Jawan, like we still like you, like what are you doing? And clearly it didn't work, because he still decided not to stick with us. Um, yeah, I wish Kristina would have been on that reward with me. Let's be real.
Why do you say that?
Because we had a
She's
really
more
good
fun?
relationship. I mean, we had a good relationship and she earned it. And I think Jawan had there was a lot of sympathy for Jawan at this point. And I think that was just kind of giving into it.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't on board with that.
And in watching that reward challenge, everybody's just like, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open. No strategic discussion really ends up getting had there because Savannah is there and you
Yes.
can't figure anything out there in that small group, right?
That was the hardest part. I wanted to talk so much about the game, but anything I said, Savannah was just going to go back and tell Rizzo and Soph. And so it was dead. It was dead on arrival, basically. The food was delicious, but nothing could be talked about.
Okay, so what ultimately ends up happening is that Savannah ends up winning immunity, and now there's a split vote plan, and
Yeah.
with this split vote plan, we have to split the votes on a second person, and that person ends up being Soph. And the first third of the season is all about you and your tribe and your relationship with Soph. And at one point, you two were talked about as number ones. But then once you all got back together, I feel like there was one conversation in the merge episode, and then I feel like that we were left. Wait, hold on. Are they still together? Can you talk
Right.
about
Yeah.
your relationship with Soph, and were you okay with her being the backup target if Rizzo played his idol?
So that's a really good question. Soph and I wanted to work with her after we came out of Kella, and then I immediately saw that she was locked in with Savannah and Rizzo, and I knew that there was no penetrating that. And I was kind of like, I'm not gonna go with this. Like, I'm not some lost puppy. Like, I can make my own relationships. Like, I don't need to be like dragged in here. Even though I liked them all and would have worked with them, I would have been clearly on the bottom. They had time after two tribe swaps to kind of build this relationship. But I had my own relationship. So then when it came time to the Nate vote, I didn't want to let her in. I knew Nate was going home. I didn't want to let her in because she would immediately told Savannah and Rizzo, and then basically chaos would have ensued. And so with Soph, she was burned by me at that point. And then when it came time for this to come around, I knew she was going to side with them ultimately. Like we had a good friendship. And so I did try to kind of get the votes on Sage to be the third split. And Steven was not going for that. And it's because they had this relationship that was kind of unclear. Because it's like Soph and me would still talk. Like I couldn't trust her, but we kind of would give information to each
Mhm.
other a little. And so I'd rather have Sage gone than Soph.
When you watch the episodes back, were you surprised in the pre-merge about how Soph maybe would have one tried to steal your idol and then would have gone with Jeremiah potentially if she felt like you weren't going to play your idol?
I wasn't surprised actually. I was surprised that she tried to steal my idol. I had no idea about that. So it was funny when she told me right before it was going to air. But basically, Soph and I were rivals. We knew from the get-go we were fighting over Jake, and we both were more strategic. And so we could read that with each other instantly. We had a good relationship, but we weren't as close. And so we were always coming for each other. And so that kind of rivalry, I knew that I could trust her moving forward because I knew that she was going to be a good player and she'd want to work with me because we both saw that we could kind of do this together. And so it sucks that that didn't work out.
Did Jake getting bit by the snake really screw up your game?
So it's funny because I was mourning whatever was happening with my friend, but then I was mourning my game too at the same time because if he would have stayed in, he always would have been a bigger target than me and would have gone. And I could have, I don't know, been like a lost puppy and got along with someone, but it really messed up my game at that point. I wouldn't have had to play my idol. I could have kept it longer, and it was tough.
Okay, so pre-tribal council. Okay,
Mhm.
finally you start to have this conversation with Jawan, and he's telling you, "Hey, I'm hearing these things about you." So, did you feel like that Jawan was a flight risk going into that tribal council? That maybe him and Sage weren't with you guys?
How do you go from saying that you don't trust Rizzo to then siding with him and believing everything he's saying? I just thought our relationship, even though we weren't best friends, was going to carry me through. And ultimately, Rizzo was just in his ear to the very last minute, and he caved. And so I didn't think. I mean, I knew if I was going to go home, it's because Jawan and Sage and Sophie flipped, but I just was hoping that wasn't the case.
Did you get the sense that it was more Jawan or Sage that was driving the vote in the vote that sent you home, based from your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think I have a different perspective from watching it and from what I heard. So I think from being out there, Jawan seemed like
And
he
only
was.
please only like what you've heard in the context of the game.
Yeah, so in the game, I thought that Jawan was more of the decision maker from the two, because Sage was very laid back. She would just kind of sit around and be like, "Well, I'm gonna go talk to Jawan," and Jawan was way more like frantic and kind of all over the place. And so I thought that he was the one kind of calling the shots, and he liked to be the one to be like, "All right, well, I'll let Sage know we're doing this." And so that's kind of where I thought. And so that's why my relationship, me and Sage didn't really talk that much, but we talk through Jawan.
Hmm. Okay.
So I think that's ultimately where I thought to be really spending my time focusing on was him.
All right. Anything else you want to make sure that people knew about your game?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically I was involved in every decision up until the MC vote, where I knew exactly what was going on. And I think Rizzo was the only person who recognized that I was strategic. Like I was the person
Game
who was going to,
recognized game, they say.
exactly. I was the person who was going to get him out, and he saw me as a threat. And so it's nothing but a compliment. No hard feelings. It's a game. I would have done the same thing.
Alex, I really enjoyed watching you play. I think you're an incredible diplomat. You're somebody who's not
Thank you.
afraid to reach across the aisle and reach out to the other side. And
Yeah.
I told this to Steven. I feel like that we need more Alexes.
I appreciate that. I think we do too. The game would be a lot more strategic and fun, and we'd be mixing and mingling a lot more.
All right. Alex, all the best to you, outside survivor, and thanks for coming on and great job.
Thanks. I really appreciate it, Rob.
All right, take
Take
care.
care.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.